What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Strange New Show. Keith and Mike watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Today we are talking about Season 1, Episode 5, Spock Amok.
Freaky Friday, Spock Amok.
Freaky, spoiler alert right from the very top, I freaking loved this episode.
My God, I'm so glad to hear you say that. I was freaking out. We'll talk all about it. Smile on my face. I watched it this morning. I pulled an all-nighter, Keith. We're catching up with stuff from work. And, any patrons out there, we'll thank them in a moment, who might watch my Deep Space Nine episode with me. Reckon I was asleep for watching that last episode. Thought I was fearful this was going to be the same. I would suffer the same fate this morning. But, oh boy, smile on my face. Just absolutely... having such a good time. Can't wait to talk about it. Glad to see you, buddy.
Yeah, indeed.
Summertime.
Yeah. Summertime, yes. Summertime all-nighters doing tech work.
Yeah, but hey, we're premiering this on a Friday. It's a Freaky Friday episode. Can't wait to talk about it.
Hell yes. All right. Well, before we get too far into the episode, we have to thank our patrons who are supporting. That's not the right slide.
That's not it at all, but we do thank these people. Keith,
we have several more.
Yeah, I don't know why that didn't happen, but I'm going to work on it right now while you talk.
Okay. Well, all of these amazing people, of which there are more now, get all sorts of bonus nonsense, including, do you want to see Mike's stupid face watching Spock Amok and see the delight register on his face as it happens? You can do that at patreon.com/K&M. You can also get bonus episodes. We're going to start doing the play along of that new Star Trek thing, because Mike's going to yell at me if we don't.
It's installed. I'm looking at it on my desktop.
Oh my God, there it is. We're going to do it. And there's bonus reviews of next gen episodes, some Amazon stuff, or animated stuff. Lots of nonsense, and you can also reach out and just communicate with us. We're just having a blast, just chatting about nonsense. Mike, who's doing that these days?
Oh, we got Brian Kimber, Beersock, Wyatt Eldridge, Casey Clark, Jason Moe, Brent Joshua, Andrew Hayes, Jorge Navoa, and the mysterious Worf's Big Ol' Boot Shiz, Charles Babadge, CRM Productions, Nikolai Ivanovich, Lobachevsky Delusions at Noon, JD Makes, Colin Dagan, Chris Mitchell, CRM, Pat, Joshua Cronin, the people who send us stuff on. Along with that, Keith, I want to mention, funny, there was like a glitch in the Patreon email service, and it sent me an email basically saying that we had lost all subscribers, and I was, we don't have many, but I was heartbroken. I said, what did I say? What did we do?
What did I say?
But luckily,
that is, my first thought is always, what did I say?
Yeah,
because
it was not the case. But also another thing, I was at a micro center, of which is, micro center is still a thing.
What is a micro center? I don't know what a micro
imagine
center is.
Best Buy, but it's all computer stuff.
Oh, okay.
Very cool. I used to frequent them in the past. I didn't know they were still open, but I have one in my neighborhood. Anyway, I was there. I know what I was checking out. Speaking of our patrons, if you look at that last tier of our patrons, those are people who send us stuff in the mail, of which we will be checking out one thing this coming weekend, something that came in the mail. That said, I was looking at all of the 3D printer stuff. They have a whole section of just 3D printer stuff. You can buy the blocks of stuff that you feed the printer that makes the thing. You can buy the printers themselves. You can get a 3D printer, Keith, for under $600 now.
Yeah.
It's crazy where we I wouldn't know what the hell to do with it, but you could get it.
Yeah, true enough. I mean, it's pretty exciting to think about. I mean, if we can get to good cheap 3D printers before AI wipes us off the planet. So that'll be that'll be fun. So very cool. So let us, before we run amok with Spock Amok, we need to talk about what you thought of last week's episode, Memento Mori. And here are your ratings. JD gave it a 92, Worf's Boot Ships gave it a 90, and Jason Moe gave it a 92 for a communal average of 91.33, which sits just a little bit on my side for the victory. I gave it a 92 to your 90. If you want your rating for Spock Amok read here on the air, just leave it in the comments below here on the YouTube. You can write a whole treatise on how you felt about the episode. There's some really funny stuff in there this week. Or just leave a number, whatever you would enjoy doing, because we would enjoy hearing from you.
Yeah,
the interaction is by far the most fun part about this whole nonsense. So what do you say we talk about this here episode, which aired on June 2nd, 22, exactly 1 year after this airs, before this airs, because we are really well synced up.
We are.
Pretty cool. The top song, I can't wait to hear it. Have you warmed up?
Me. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Oh, great. We got a little Judy there. It was not Judy Garland at the top of the charts. It was Harry Styles back with As It Was.
You know, it's just the same as it was. So much damage you would do. What pills are you on? When I sing this little song. You know, it's on my running mix, Keith. You'd think I'd have any of the lyrics down, but I don't.
Well, no, I don't think I heard any of the lyrics when I did.
One thing I'll tell you about that song.
But I love you just tevied a little bit.
So I'm growing it, I guess. So here's what I can say about Harry Styles is great. I love his fashion sense. I love his his gender fluid clothing that is all the rage. A big fan of Harry Styles. However, you know, back in the day, you know, the American Music Awards and all of the different music awards that would be on TV, the big thing you would tune in for is like what sweeps week-esque escapades are going to take place, what hijinks, if you will take place on the music. Like, what kind of performance? Will there be boob cones, or will there be
the boob cones?
Britney Spears and Madonna making out, but, you know, whatever it may be. So Harry Styles was on...
We know what you were paying attention to.
Yeah, Harry Styles was on one of these shows not long ago to perform this song, and you know what his big performance element was, Keith?
What's that?
He was staring at his feet and walking the other way on a turntable. So he had all these dancers dancing, and he was just like walking the opposite way, like staring at his feet the whole time. And I was like, okay, that's...
Is that the one where the turntable went in the opposite direction and they all had to like completely change their choreo?
Maybe, I don't know.
On the fly, because I read about that.
He was
but that is the music video. The music video is like him spinning on a turntable.
Oh,
with this
maybe
lady.
that's why it was that. Well, okay. It wasn't titillating, but you know what? Hey, he's
was
good looking.
It is As It Was.
You're right.
Okay.
Nailed it.
So the top movie this week was Top Gun Maverick. Once again, coming in at $90 million.
Keith, it saved cinema.
It saved cinema. Here's something fun.
Cinema.
If you're drinking Mountain Dew on keys out the Mountain Dew. It's just water, guys. It's just water. So,
Keith, I'm actually going to a independent movie theater tomorrow. We'll talk about it on Geekly, but I'm going to see an independent film.
Oh, well.
It's so nerdy. It's called Blackberry. It's that movie about the rise and fall of BlackBerry.
Guys, now that you know, Mike is very bougie and very sophisticated. He's going to an independent movie theater.
And we're going to be Into the Spider-Verse tonight, Keith. Lots to talk about on Geekly. Check us out on Mondays.
The last time I went to an independent movie theater, I almost died because I went there with no warning, with not having any idea what was happening. Saw Boys Don't Cry.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
you didn't know what you were going to see?
I had no idea what was going to happen. I didn't know the movie, and then like, I can't talk for like 2 hours. So I don't want to do that again.
That'll get you.
Great popcorn though. All right, so let's talk about the hard news, and that is the weekly world news headline from 20 years before.
No!
Mike, there's a baby born with antlers.
Well, better him than me, I guess.
Yeah, well, we can see that in the intervening years between Deep Space Nine and now, their Photoshop is now, I think, actually Photoshop and not somebody with like a pair of scissors and tape. But
what is that? What's that thing on the top right? Miracle Mud something. Get healing powers from UFO.
I don't know. Miracle Mud looks like a P and an R.
Did you personally curl the top corner?
I did. Strangely, I don't actually have a subscription to 20-year-old weekly world news headlines.
Guy finds money tree in his yard.
I just like to go back to the baby born with antlers because it's an adorable picture with he's got full. I mean, that's like a 4-point buck there. He's a little deer, says Mom, bleeding out.
Bible shocker, head of John the Baptist found, and my all-time favorite, because talk about body positivity, Keith. 2-ton tubbies compete in beauty pageant for fatties. That aged
Jesus
well. That really
Lord.
aged well. Let's get that
Oh
right
my
off
God.
the screen.
The early 2000s were just, it's funny because like now you could live through it, right? I was there, I was watching TV. But if you watch some like old reality TV or news or comedy at that point, it was a shockingly mean time in our culture. It was weird.
Don't you think that two-ton tubbies compete in beauty pageant for fatties is a little offensive? Well, yeah, usually we'd agree with you, Phil, but there's a lot of cool alliteration there, so let's keep it. It's
about the alliteration. Yeah. That's right. Yikes. Okay, so let us mercifully transport ourselves 20 years into the future in a happier place with higher budgets and less just meanness. And talk about this episode, Spock Amok, which was directed by Rachel Leiterman. Rachel's only episode of Trek so far.
Oh, well, she better get more. Great job, Rachel.
For sure, 100%. And written by Henry Alonzo Myers, who wrote on Children of the Comet, and Robin Wasserman, the first of two. One thing I have noticed for this contemporary Trek, especially having broken down a lot of the 90s stuff, the number of female writers and directors are like 10 times the amount for this. And I think you see it on the show, and the show's better for it.
Yeah.
So there it is. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm going to have to do trivial trivia on the fly because I didn't do it. But I think there's a good chance to run the bumper and let me scramble. Now, Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia.
Keith, it's a new bumper.
That's not a new bumper.
That's what it's always been? With the cartoons?
Been that way.
Oh. Usually it's your big face.
Oh, well, right, but I redid the bumpers for Strange New Show. It's
guys,
different from
I'm
Deep Space
paying attention, 100%.
Sure. Yeah, definitely seems that way. So a couple of things we're going to see here. The music in Spock's Nightmare Dream is the fight music from the original series Amok Time. So you will recognize that, as well as cinematic achievement. Shocking, it did not win any Oscars. My cinematic debut, Star Trek The Wrath of Niner, also used that.
It's an all-timer.
Yeah, so there it is. So that's pretty cool. We also see Pike wearing his green captain's wrap uniform for the first time, which we know from the original series, of course. And at the very end, one of the names on the hull that other people had written on there.
Scourge?
The Scourging, the Scourge? I don't know.
The Skarsgård? They're hot.
The Skarsgård?
Yeah.
The Stellar Skateboard. Is L. Ball. Do you know who that might be and why that might be a relevant thing in Star Trek? It is Lucille Ball. And do you know that Lucille Ball is actually an important person in Star Trek?
Is she? You know why? Because she got some splaining to do, Keith.
Well, I'm going to do some splaining and say that the original series, the very beginning, was produced by her production company, Desilu.
Oh, cool.
And she was basically an uncredited executive producer on the show. So Lucille Ball, big part of Trek history, but never officially credited. It's pretty cool.
She's just a big part of showbiz history, right?
Oh my God.
She's so... Her comedic work is so genius. Her show was so genre bending and did so much for so many. But often that's all we think about when we think about Lucille Ball, and there's just so much more to her. Watch a doc.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, so our guest stars this week include Adrian Holmes as Robert April, Gia Sandhu as T'Pring. We are co-starring Alden Aldair as the Bajoran Ta'or, Jennifer Way as Ensign Christina, Alex Kapp as Enterprise Computer, Ron Kennel as Vaso, Andre Day Kim as Chief Kyle, Graham Parkhurst as Lieutenant Deaver, Tahir Vejdani as Cattell, and Tori Webster as Ensign Zier. I think it is time now to hop in to our screening room and find out if Mike got the important screenshot.
This one, ba-da-da, I won't give it away, but I am. All right, let's just roll it. Keith, I wish I had thought about it, because I would have swapped our places. That's what I should have done.
Oh, all right. Well, let's just personality-wise just do each other.
Let's never.
I'm the cool guy. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm sort of, whatever. Like, haha, like, I'm so cute. Oh, look at my hair.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're not gonna do me?
No.
Come on.
I've been thinking about looking at the analytics and getting the Google AdSense and maybe doing really starting to push it.
Wow, flawless. I mean, is this a reboot of Face Off? It's Air playing the piano. Great. Wow.
Oh,
This is the best content. I'm so glad tens of you watch this.
Not anymore. Nobody pays for it anymore. Oh, what an email to get. Thanks, Patreon.
Very sad. So in our teaser, Spock is walking across a giant bridge covered with torches on Vulcan, and apparently guardrails are not logical. He arrives at a ceremony and gongs it open. T'Pring is there wearing what looks like a wedding dress that is, let's call it shiny. Then she discovers that Spock's got human ears and rejects him. It's an anxiety dream about being half human. Instead of a wedding, she declares a battle of ritual combat, which of course calls back to Amok time. Ritual combat with his Vulcan self. We hear the Amok time music. It's really cool. It's cool to, this is referencing that episode heavily, where they use those battle thingies to fight to the death. It's a whole thing. But of course, those are the figures that I have of beat up Spock and Kirk.
Cool. That's very cool. Yeah.
So he fights himself for a while in the sand. Naturally, his Vulcan side wins, and he wakes up in his quarters. And his quarters are stylish as heck. I tell you that I think the next gen quarters are really, really cool looking, but these are just cool. It looks like an Apple store.
It's an exercise in restraint to not just screenshot literally every frame, to just play the episode behind us, because everything is beautiful. It's so well shot. And everything is so seamless. That's not once thus far has an effect or a CGI background composited with our actors in the front rung untrue.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Well, I think part of that is because it's not blue screen.
Yeah, what we talk, it's the volume.
It's the actual image behind them. So there it is. The Enterprise is back at Starbase 1 for repairs after the Gorn attack, and the crew is going to get some R&R on the station. And T'Pring is coming back over to resume the consummation, let's say, that got interrupted in the pilot. She arrives, and they talk to each other for a moment, then make out for a bit. And she complains that his quarters are very human. This is not going to help his anxiety. Not great. And she mentions, hey, I brought a friend. And he's like, what? And
for
apparently
Nog. She brought a friend for Nog?
Well, good. Don't bring a Nog. Stupid. Deep Space Nine cut. Deep cut. If you're keeping up with all of our nonsense, you'll understand that. If you are not one of the 3 people who watches that fast, then you are going to be so confused. So we learn here that T'Pring's job is
this is very cool. Cool beat.
Very cool. That her job is to bring in criminals and rehabilitate them and bring them back to logic. Now, of course, on Vulcan, just wanting to use your emotions makes you a criminal. So it's a very wide definition of what a criminal is, and we get into this a little bit in other series. But anyway, so she's brought along her assistant, essentially, to help handle that task while she's here. And there's, of course, a criminal in the area, and her friend hopefully will be able to take care of it so they can get down to Booty Town.
Yeah, well.
But Spock's like, not yet. I have some diplomatic duties to attend to first, and she makes that face.
Ooh, that face is not good.
It's not. That's not the face you want to see. When
and he knows it, dude. He knows
when your partner is there for a booty call. That's not the face you want to get. So, in the meeting room, Admiral April gives up some exposition on some folks called the Rongovians, who live in a dangerous area between Klingon and Romulan space that, of course, the Federation wants access to. So they're trying to make friends, but to not much avail. And we get footage of them meeting with the Tellarites, and it doesn't go well. So, Mike, the Tellarites are sort of the pig-faced people, and they are their whole deal is they're like raging assholes.
Okay.
And so they're always like yelling, and they're angry and mean, and that's how they communicate.
Okay.
So of course they're screaming at each other in the footage.
The Tellarites are not the people we're dealing with. That's the Rongovians.
The Rongovians are the orc-looking people. So the Tellarites are the ones we just see a little from the back here in the video there. So it doesn't go well, and now we're afraid that the Rongovians are going to make a deal with the Klingons or the Romulans, which
and this is
not
basically
good.
Like the Cape of Good Hope. We need it as a trade route. We want
for a trade route, and yes, to be able to get to the Beta Quadrant. And at this point, I guess, Mike, you wouldn't know this, that the Federation is only like 9 months out of a freaking war with the Klingons. Like, huge war.
And there's no wormholes right now. We're not doing wormhole travel.
No. There's no wormholes. We definitely not discovered the Bajoran wormhole or anything like that. And so the Klingons we've been in active war with, and the Romulans we haven't had much interaction with, but we know they're sneaky and bad.
Okay.
So that's what we know about that.
So we obviously don't want these guys to align with them first, because that's going to make everything very much more difficult for us.
We definitely want to make friends. So they have arrived at the starbase for negotiations in an old solar sail ship, which Mike is going to learn a great deal about this season on Deep Space Nine.
Oh, great.
How does one have solar sails in space?
Man, they set up the ending right away. I said it on the watch along too. They're like, they fly the flag of their allies, and I was like, that's the last shot, but we got to get there. We got to get there.
Yeah. So the Rongovian delegation arrives, and they're cranky little orcs,
and they're there early.
But then they're abruptly pleasant. And the lead guy, Vaso, is there with his first officer, Brax.
Have we ever seen this species before?
I don't think so.
Because they are cool.
Super cool.
Cool looking, yeah. The teeth are rad. Everything about them shouts, antagonist, but they are... Well, we'll learn about them, but this is a cool beat. It's a cool back and forth beat. They're really abrasive and then really friendly, and it's a cool juxtaposition.
Right. Well, I mean, and understanding it more later, of course, like they've been hanging out with La'an, and then they meet Pike. Like, hey, buddy. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So Vaso is quickly buddies with Pike and wants to start chatting. In sickbay, Chapel and Ortegas go to pick up Mbenga to go somewhere, but he's nervous because his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend is going to be there too. Chapel has a booty call with some dude, and Ortegas is there to play wing person. And apparently, Chapel has a history of getting in complicated relationships with both gentlemen and the ladies, happy pride, and Ortegas enjoys it all.
Yeah.
Mbenga...
It's just a soupçon. We don't have to make a big deal about it. I love it.
It's perfectly handled because it's not a big deal. So Mbenga shows up in a fly fishing hat, and they go to the transporter room to head out for shore leave. I wrote down that it's weird that they would beam to their location as opposed to, just like walk there because we're docked. But I think the idea is that this station is so giant with these huge biodomes that like it's like a size of a city. So unless you have little tubes.
You know what I just watched? This made me think of Do you remember in the 90s, somewhere in the 90s, there was that experiment? It was Biodome. I forget what it was called. It was Exo. It was all these scientists went into this. They were replicating what it would be like to live in Mars, and they were cut off for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of. But I would just watch. There's a documentary on Hulu about it, and it is fascinating because, like many things, it was all funded commercially. It really had nothing to do with science.
It was like the Doritos Biodome,
and it failed miserably. It's very interesting. So anyway, check it out.
The fascination we had with domes for a while, and this blew my mind. There's a town in Vermont near where I grew up called Winooski, and it was only like a couple of years ago that I read some reports that some crazy dude actually had a plan to cover Winooski, Vermont in a dome. It's craziness. Anyway, it was a big old thing. I want a documentary about that. So you're an expert on that. Give me a doc. So the manga accidentally mentions number one's nickname as they're beaming out, and the nickname is "Where Fun Goes to Die." It's not really like a nickname that like trips off your tongue, but whatever. It's all light and silly. So Spock goes to his quarters and tells T'Pring that the negotiations began unexpectedly. She is understandably pissed, and she throws down with doubting their compatibility and calling him human. Ouch.
Yeah, not good, man.
She pieces out, and he notices that she cooked him a romantic candlelit dinner. Double ouch. This visit is not going well. But that is a very triangular dinner.
Well, you know what they say. If it's sharp and pointy, it's tasty. Sharp and pointy. I'm workshopping it, Keith. 2-ton tubbies chow down on volcanic delicacy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay. If you want to go a mountain, you eat the mountain of food first. That's terrible.
Oh, should I just take it out of the episode?
That might have been the worst 30 seconds of... We've been broadcasting for years. And how many hundreds of hours? That might be the worst.
Oh, it wasn't a good exchange.
We have ever put up.
Yep.
It's not all gold, folks.
Yeah.
Happily, in Act 1, Chapel is on her Tinder date with a young ensign. He calls her Fire. And she says, let's skip dinner and get to the point. But he wants to talk about us. Oops. She's very much not on board.
She's looking for a different pointy dessert, Keith.
Hopefully not too pointy.
Well, pointy enough.
As long as it's vegetarian, because it's Vulcan. So, anyway, she's like, this is not what I wanted, and notices Spock eating alone.
That guy's like, man, Colin Jost, he got my career.
Yes, he's like halfway between Colin Jost and Alex Moffat.
Yeah, it's Colin Moffat.
Yeah, maybe they had a baby. So, meanwhile, La'an and number one discuss being where fun goes to die. They both admit that they're kind of just not into the hijinks and fun. They just really like working. And there's no shame in that.
No, man, it's cool.
Then La'an gets a message saying there's a security breach, and they go together with phasers to the airlock to discover two young crew members in spacesuits. Uh-oh. Do you know what the blue one, what species that is?
Blue.
Close enough. She's a Bolian.
Huh.
So we head back to the restaurant. What a fancy restaurant set, too. I want to go there. And Chapel is chastising Spock for screwing up his date with T'Pring. You gotta sacrifice to be in a relationship, which is why I don't do them. It makes a lot of sense. Well handled. Spock explains his anxiety about being half human. because he was bullied about being half human as a kid, which is kind of one of the heartbreaking themes throughout this wacky episode. I think really well handled. But we see that they're good friends and they tease each other. And Spock tries to make it up to T'Pring. He goes back and says, "You know what? I'm going to make it up to you. We're going to get on the same page. We're going to do a Vulcan soul ritual.
Oh, we're going to listen to Sting.
Listen to Sting.
Do a little tantric. You know, it's all good.
Yeah, just okay. Well, is that what you did when you took Jen to dinner?
Yeah. No.
Great.
We had a lovely dinner actually. We did go to dinner. A nice little restaurant. We had hush puppies. You ever have a hush puppy?
I love hush puppies.
Deep fried cornbread, so good.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Great, yeah.
You ever have it at what's the barbecue place?
This is the only place I've ever had hush puppies.
Virgil's. Virgil's has great hush puppies with like maple butter to put on it.
Mm-hmm. Is it served by Ted DiBiase?
It is not. It would be great if it were served by Ted DiBiase. That'd be great. It'd be expensive though.
Mm-hmm. But usually you would think Virgil would serve Ted, you know?
But yes, no, exactly. Wow, deep cut for the. Are you a fan of 1980s wrestling? if what is the Venn diagram between Star Trek nerds and wrestling nerds?
Hey, everybody's got a price, Keith.
Everybody's got a price. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so they start the ritual.
Lots of bell ringing, lots of jingling, lots of candles.
Well, I mean, but I think you're right. There's a lot of sort of like meditation-y sort of a things. It's Vulcans are all about meditation, like that's their jam. That's their whole deal. But abruptly, all the candles go out, and something is wrong. And guess what? This is where I was like, now I'm so into this episode. They have totally freaky Friday'd. They swapped bodies. Hilarious. I wrote down the phrase, I love this episode so much right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, this, I was excited too, because I love a Freaky Friday. I don't know why. It's such an easy conceit, and you see it across all shows, all media.
It's so much fun.
But it's always fun. Here's the thing, though. It's not always done well. So this could have really, really quickly and really profoundly gone off the rails. So that's the point here. But I will say that up to this point, I felt very comfortable because, you know, I've been complaining. Oh, they're after me. I've been not complaining. You know how like sometimes you're playing darts or golf or something and you
Mike, what did you do?
You do just well enough to think, oh, maybe I got a shot at this, but it's still not quite there. That's how I felt about the humor on this show so far. Clearly they can do the drama. Clearly the action is really, really good. But there's been a tonal offset that has kind of just bugged me. They've shown sparks where I'm like, I think they can nail it, but then sometimes they miss the mark. However, this episode thus far, all of the quirk, all of the little humor beats between characters, the one-liners, the zingers have all been working. The pace has been really well and quippy. The score has been well handled. It's been a little sitcom-y, a little rom-com-y, but also epic when necessary already up to this point. And so I felt comfortable that they had it in hand when they kind of revealed the Freaky Friday-ness. And so I was excited. There was no trepidation. I think you felt the same, so we're in.
No, for sure. And I said this last night, like the Star Trek has not always had a great handle on humor. Like it doesn't always do funny that well because it's very dry. Like original series did. Original series had a lot of good humor, and you know, Next Gen with Data a little bit, but doing a fully zany, the whole episode is zany as opposed to like a little zinger here and there. There's sometimes like a Star Trek funny, but not a like funny for normal people. And this one was like genuinely funny.
Oh, I laughed out loud quite a bit. I will say also, you know, in an episode that is clearly about experience or understanding people's differences, and especially in a relationship, I thought this was a really interesting way to do so. The Freaky Friday-ness of it allows them both to kind of experience the importance of their work, which helps reveal that it's not simply black and white. You're not prioritizing me high enough. There's actually import, and it's really well done.
And it's about being in a. I'll talk about it later, but I'll say this last thing about the Freaky Friday-ness of it. That I think the fact that they talk exactly the same in this very stilted, weird Vulcan way. Normally would be a huge liability on a Freaky Friday, because like, how are you going to tell that you're playing the other person? You talk exactly the same way. This time they actually used it intentionally and got a really good laugh about it, because how would you tell? Because they do talk exactly the same way. You don't have a face off where, like, Travolta is doing Nicolas Cage. Anyway, super fun. So in Act 2, Admiral April goes to Pike's quarters with some bad news. Vaso has called off the talks. And this is surprising to them both, as the meeting seemed so jovial. So, based on them being angry and argumentative with the Tellarites and cool guy with Pike, and them talking about their radical empathy, their species just matches vibes and code switches with whomever they're in contact with. Very interesting. That was my editorial at this point in the episode.
I didn't pick any of it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
any of that.
it is interesting that they are so quick and so easy to code switch. That's interesting. So apparently they don't want to talk to Pike anymore. They just want to talk to Spock, which is interesting. Probably because he was not throwing off such an aggressive affect that they had to match. So they could actually look at each other face to face. So we head back to Spock's quarters, and they're trying more hilarious things to try to get themselves switched back. This head thing made me laugh so bad. And of course, there's someone at the door. Spock tells T'Pring to play it cool and pretend to be Spock, and they agree on hijinks. Hilarious. Maybe
the best line in the whole series so far. Or somebody says, like, how I feel about hijinks, and then at some point he calls back to it and he goes, we're treading dangerously close to hijinks. And both times I guffawed. I just thought it was just a perfect T-ball, and they knocked it out of the park. Great performances by both of them.
Yeah, truly.
And never being goofball, never being off the wall, jokesters.
No, I mean, and in all cases, humor works best when you're not playing it for laughs. You're playing a ridiculous situation straight, and they're both doing that, and
they avoid the biggest trope here, that I didn't think was going to work, and I would have had a lot of quibbles about, which is, in no universe, because usually the Freaky Friday trope is we can't tell anybody. Keith, we got to keep it. We have to be each other, but nobody can know, and that's what leads to silly. And I was like, that's not going to work here, because everything shouts. Spock is logical. You have to tell Cap. You can't go into these negotiations and lie about it. So I'm glad that they diffuse that right away.
Yeah, I do too, and it's logical. It makes more sense, and it's logical based on their situation, but also these characters. Like they know Pike's going to be like, yeah, all right, cool. So anyway, they who's at the door? Well, it's Pike, who's made a career of breaking up their booty calls. They do a terrible job of playing it cool, and when they finally get the stakes of the situation, they give up the ghost. Anson does some phenomenal straight man work in this.
Perfect.
I laughed out loud again. And T'Pring says, I have to try to make this work. So, here we go. Later, La'an and Number One interrogate the ensigns.
In another hysterical scene.
Oh, so good. Great performances by everybody. Able to get full tears for this quick little scene.
And of course, they would both fight to be bad cop, and it's just so good.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Jennifer Way as Ensign Christina. I scrolled up. Now I have to go back. Here we go. So Lon is bad cop, and Number One is good cop, and we find out through both of them that the ensigns were playing Enterprise bingo. Their shore leave has been canceled, and they're going to have to clean the transporter pads under Chief Kyle, who, quick aside here, they just say like, is super mean?
Yeah.
Chief Kyle's super mean? What does that mean?
You never met Chief Kyle?
Oh, we have, and he's this cute little guy who seems happy.
Well, I think that's the joke. It's just anybody in authority when you're in school. You know what I mean?
I suppose that's probably true. Neither of them have any idea what Enterprise bingo is. Meanwhile, T'Pring, aka Spock, gets a call from T'Pring's assistant. The criminal they're finding is going to surrender, but of course, only to T'Pring. So, naturally, Spock is going to have to pretend to do her job too. Of course.
Yeah.
So, in Act 3, La'an and Number 1 have found out the secret of Enterprise bingo, played by the Lower Deckers. I'm certain Mike got a screenshot here, so let's read them. I wrote it down, and you did it, Mike. You did it.
Mm-hmm. I got to zoom in, though. Hold on. Let me see how we do this. I don't want to ruin it, but I'm going to.
Well, I think I might have it written down here.
Do you?
Yes. So, Number 1 is... Oh, God. Oh, you've ruined it. What's happening? Well, there we go. All right. We're floating in
We're floating, but whatever. We got to do what we got to do. Okay.
All right. For science, we have to do it. Mike?
USS, use the transporter to reflavor gum. Yeah, we know we see him do that. Okay. Phaser stun
duel.
Amazing. Turbo lift 2-floor shout challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Set the universal translator to
Andorian.
All right.
Hilarious.
Gravity boot hang challenge.
Uh-huh.
Nailed it. Medical tricorder challenge. Vulcan marsupial.
Huh?
Okay. Food replicator challenge. Durian fruit.
Uh-huh.
Sneak a tribble into the transporter
buffer. Which Mike has not seen any of the Tribble episodes.
I've heard they're trouble though.
Yes. That's a very dangerous thing to have a Tribble on the station at all.
They sound
let
a
alone
lot like
in the transporter
gremlins,
buffer.
Basically.
Well, kind of. Except they don't really do anything other than replicate absurdly fast.
So sit in the captain's chair, which clearly. EV suit challenge, unsanctioned spacewalk, okay, which leads to sign the Scorch.
There it is. That is Enterprise bingo. I want to do every damn one of them. So La'an challenges them to do the challenge. They're like, we want to understand what people want to do this.
Gotta find the fun, man.
Let's do it. Great character beat.
Great beat, and
have the uptight people do this.
I like. We've already established their friendship, but I think we needed. And you know what? I'm going to back off on Rebecca Romaine a little bit. She was just put in a bad spot, I think, that episode, because in a more focused, small comedic beat or arc with a partner here, nailing it. It's when she was put at the helm of a comedic arc that it really was. She was just a little bit set out.
It was dramatic
sent out
arc,
to sea. Excuse me.
But yeah, I mean,
but it was in that dramatic arc. They were giving her all this quippy stuff that just wasn't working.
Oh, right.
She's clearly much more no nonsense focused, which I think works much better.
And this is the first time I think we're getting more mileage out of La'an's character, because it's very dark. She's very grim and very serious, and because of course with all the trauma she's had in her life, but it makes it not as fun of a character. But now when you're able to use this as a different spice on the character, all of a sudden I like La'an way more.
Yeah, and we've got as an ensemble, we've got Pike, we've got Spock who's shown some comedic chops, we've got the quippy doctor, we've got all of that. So it's great to have this juxtaposition of these two characters who are a little more down to earth.
And we're deep enough into the series now that
we're halfway.
Seeing La'an do these stupid things means something.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
And we get perfectly paced montage coming up. It's great.
Yep. They do the gum thing. They shoot each other with phasers. Hilarious. Good fun. There's re-energizing the mint in the gum. That's so ridiculous. Energy, just never an issue because it seems wildly. And I really loved the, taking the the turbo lift, like, because it's a lot of Wild West challenges, where they're trying to see who the turbo lift goes to, and the phase is great. Funny, loved it, fun. So we head to the fishing biodome, and Chapel and Ortegas discuss Chapel's aversion to relationships. She's about 10 minutes from singing Being Alive. But then T'Pring and Spock approach. T'Pring/Spock approaches. Spock explains the situation. Chapel asks the obvious question, and no, Spock hasn't done it. Because, like, come on. First thing you do is like, hey, what's going on down there? You know? I mean, he probably knows, but, like, I'd be curious. Anyway, but I appreciate that Chapel's like, so? Huh? But Spock, being the weirdo, hasn't. So Chapel says, you need to do T'Pring's job like she's doing yours. So La'an and Number One realize it's no fun to break the rules if you're the one setting the rules. So they're going to have to escalate. We head back to the negotiations, and Vaso is not matching Vulcan mannerisms. Is now matching Vulcan mannerisms. They trade logical spars, and he points out the danger in losing one's culture in the melting pot that is Starfleet. Which, of course, T'Pring, i.e. in Spock's body, is also annoyed about. Which is fascinating and sort of getting to the point here. Pike steps in and tries to defend both Spock and the Federation by pointing out the noble sacrifice that Spock is making, and points out that Spock has both integrated into Starfleet culture and yet has held on to his identity. And this impresses and turns Vaso.
And it's also a hugely important beat to T'Pring.
To T'Pring. Yeah. I mean, and this is why I think the writing in this episode is so freaking tight, because everything is connected to everything else. There is not an extra couplet in the dialogue. Everything here is important. Every beat is important.
Now, spoiler alert for when we get to the end, I don't have a lot of nits to pick. My major nit is here, though. I wish we could have found a way in the resolution of all these things to have T'Pring have a little agency in these negotiations, because we'll see that Spock takes Spock himself has a part in the altercation in T'Pring's job stuff, and here she's sort of just hearing Pike say what a great guy Spock is and why it's important. That's how she grows and learns. Whereas, and Pike has to kind of let her off the hook here, which she's clearly not. She's not as good as Spock at negotiations, but she's not unqualified. She's doing her thing too. So I would have liked to have seen a more finessed way of having her have a little agency. It's not atrocious by any stretch, but it's just one thing that stuck out to me.
That's totally fair. Although, Spock punching the dude is...
I didn't say he did it well.
He definitely fucked it up just as hard as she screwed up his. So I think on some level, they both blew it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Which is kind of a...
That's a good point.
I think it's a better way, as opposed to like, oh yeah, I each of us nailed the other person's job because we're so awesome. If they both just totally biff
it. Yeah, you're right. I guess they don't really convert that guy. They just bring him in.
He just punched him.
They punch him and it's like we captured him.
Especially understanding Vulcans, that's ridiculous.
Okay.
That is so blazingly out of the rules.
Keith, this
for
just
Vulcans.
in. This just in.
Oh, wait, oh.
That's not what I wanted. Wormhole closed.
Woo! No, do it in the baby voice.
You did a good job. The wormhole is officially closed.
Was that worth it?
It was for me. It was for me. So in Act 4, M'Benga is happily fishing, although clearly not fly fishing, as they said.
He's setting a fly. He just casts it differently.
He's casting with a regular rod.
Yeah.
Nothing about what he's doing on the fishing part is fly fishing in any way, shape, or form.
He does set the fly, but he doesn't reel.
Have you ever fly fished before, Mike?
I have not personally, no. But my brother-in-law does, so.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. So, But it also brought up the other ethical question of this episode.
It's catch and release, baby. It's catch and release.
Well, yes, which is certainly better than like eating. I mean, if they eat them, fine, right? But like, it's not super fun for the fish to get yanked out of the water by a hole in their face. So I'm imagining maybe they have a less destructive way to do that.
Maybe.
Or are they holographic
Hollow
fish?
Yeah, like we only know that they're biodomes, so that doesn't mean that they're natural biodomes. Perhaps they are.
I don't think we have the hollow technology yet.
That'd be a huge hollow suite. Holy crap.
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. But I imagine like just the fish. But I don't know. Interesting ethical quandary.
Interesting
I don't know.
ethical quandary, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know. And I say that as someone who enjoys fishing. So, and I have the same ethical dilemma within myself, but I don't know. Life's complicated. Anyway, so T'Pring / Spock and Chapel go to find the criminal playing 3D chess. He asks why T'Pring brought a human along. The criminal is someone who values emotion and has rejected logic, but is also super racist about humans. Chapel calls his bluff. He starts to move on Chapel, and Spock punches him the heck out. Craziness, but fun.
Awesome.
So we head back to the ship, and M'Benga and Chapel...
also reaffirming what, like you said about writing and pacing. They showed us Chapel and Spock talking in the diner and being buddies, and we hadn't really seen that beat before, but we now get to see its conclusion, the steps into Defender. His human side is expressing its friendship in a different way that is equally as kind of sweet. Knocking this guy out, he deserved it
for sure. Using T'Pring's body, like what did you do to my hand?
Pretty cool, and it really reaffirms this. I thought actually they've done so much stuff with Uhura and different characters establishing friendships that haven't quite worked, and they've been working hard at it. But here, in the couple of scenes, they really fortified the relationship between these two, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah,
actually, Chapel really impressed me this episode.
Yeah,
lots of different scenes with different subtext and breadcrumbs with different characters. I'm psyched to see how she progresses.
Yes. So back on the ship, M'Benga and Chapel work to put T'Pring and Spock back in their bodies by putting uni goo and glowy crystals on their forehead.
Oh, I wish I could have been on set for this. They're like, okay, we've got chocolate frosting on set. What's it for? Ooh, we having cupcakes?
Well, at least it wasn't actually uni, because that stuff stinks. They scream, but it works. Spock thanks Chapel, and Keith admits he totally has a crush on her.
Well, she make him happy.
Oh, deep cut. I think you and Keiko.
Double date? Me and Keiko and you and Chapel?
You and Keiko and me and Chapel?
At least Chapel's single.
Yes, it's true. Like, you guys would be two married people. I'm single. She's single. Let's make this happen.
Yeah, we could do it.
I mean, I could probably be her dad, but whatever. It's sci-fi. Okay. Anyway, so later in Spock's quarters, Spock apologizes to T'Pring, and they talk about the appeal of Starfleet.
Keith, let's just for a moment, once again.
Yeah.
There's so many cool shots. Two of my favorites are coming up. Oh, one of my favorites is coming up, excuse me. This one's great too, because once again, when you've got all this real estate and you can get the wide shots that we haven't been able to get in 4x3.
100%.
Rule of thirds, right? You don't have to have your principals dead center gigantic. Like, do that in close-up. Yeah. But when you're doing an establishing shot, how amazing to show the scale of the set, but also have your focal points. They're very symmetrically opposed on the bed, showing all of the angles of the room in the lower third quadrant. This is just an incredible photograph.
And the lighting.
The lighting.
I mean, one of the things that Star Trek has done incredibly well, basically since Next Gen, is built-in lighting in the walls, and so you have a lot of top-down light and from the side light. And man, if I had a lot of money, like, to make my bedroom like that, how
well, it's another reason why I think the practical, I don't know how to sort of somewhat practical backdrop on a lot of these sets works is because if that was green screen or blue screen entirely, reflections are a nightmare. But because it's there, they're actually able to light the room properly and account for the reflections properly, so it looks so cool.
Well, you're not even accounting for it. You're just letting them do what they do.
Yeah, it's really great.
Super, super cool. But they have, I think, what is the interesting part of this conversation. Spock apologizes to T'Pring, and he explains why Starfleet is important to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because Starfleet accepts him for who he is, after having lived an entire life of the Vulcans' bigotry towards humans, including T'Pring's. And T'Pring opens up and says that she feared that she was just a duty like his commitment to Starfleet. Great scene and incredibly human, right? Because that's take out the sci-fi element of that. I don't think there's any relationship that hasn't had this type of a conversation before.
And I only have a limited working knowledge of Vulcans and whatnot, but I know that expressing emotion, and clearly this episode shows, is sometimes seen as weakness or sometimes seen as illogical. But as we know from relationships, insecurity is the biggest emotion, is the biggest vulnerability. And so them both expressing that together actually shows quite a unique bond.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the entire Vulcan culture is about repressing all of those emotions and living in pure, cold logic. So this is an incredibly intimate scene with the two of them here. But anyway, they're happy again, and they can finally do the space jam. Hooray for them, and Pike is not there to interrupt. So in Act 5, Pike, April, and Uhura begin the final negotiations. Pike uses kind of reverse psychology to talk them into it by admitting the downsides of a deal with the Federation and being super honest. Because he has realized that their code switching was actually a diplomatic ploy. They value most radical empathy, someone who sees things from their point of view. And he's able to say, yeah, I do see your point of view. These are the downsides of working with us. And that is the key that unlocks the whole thing. It worked, which is...
You sure it's not just being incredibly attractive? I mean, this man, it's not even fair. Look at this guy.
It is a little bit unfair to walk around the world looking like that.
Yeah, wearing your jammies?
In his ridiculous wraparound space jammies.
His Robin Hood's nightie?
It still works. Yeah. That's the thing. Can you imagine what you or I would look like in that?
Oh God, I'm actually trying to imitate it today, and it's not.
Would you try to be sexy in that stupid wraparound? I don't know, but he can do it. Dude can pull it off. Anyway, I thought it was really cool, and I thought in real life, right? There was nothing more disarming and creates more intimacy than just another person saying, like, here, I actually see your experience. I see your point of view. I see how you would feel in the situation. That empathy, if you ever want to get out of a fight,
you ever
want to make a friend,
you're right.
If you ever, well, it's not even I'm an asshole. Like, I can see from your point of view why this thing and this thing and this thing would cause you whatever. Like, and even if I don't agree with it, I can see how you would feel that way. It unlocks everything. So, it's a tool. Put it in your pocket. Do the Pike. And of course it works, and the solar ship flies the Federation flag.
I don't know if I catch a screen of it, but that's my favorite thing. I think it's maybe in a couple shots where they use the ship, they're following the ship off, and then you see it back through a window, back into establishing the next scene. It's really cool.
It's just great stuff. So, meanwhile, Number 1 and La'an do a rule-breaking spacesuit-free spacewalk to sign the Scorch by signing a piece of the outer hull, which is good luck. Setting up a force field over them on the hull of the ship. Whew, hope that doesn't fail.
Yeah, well.
But very cool. They both sign it. And then, of course, they see the solar ship fly above them. It's beautiful and cool. And now they get why the hijinks can bring you to some cool stuff you wouldn't know. Great shot. The design of the solar ship is beautiful. And we're going to see that on Deep Space Nine. I'm excited on Deep Space Nine for that. Meanwhile, a post-coital Spock and T'Pring hang out. And later, Chapel and Ortegas have a drink on 10 Forward and discuss honesty. And it's a great scene, or not in 10 Forward, in the restaurant. And so here's I have two thoughts in this final scene. One, either I feel like they're setting up Chapel and Ortegas to be dating,
or there to be a something between them.
Yeah, I mean, like 100%.
There's tension, clearly, yes, 100%.
It feels, I mean, definitely from Ortegas' point of view, and I think, Chapel would be up to it, except for, is this about that, or is this about Chapel's crush on Spock, who we have mentioned before? And so we see Chapel sort of wingmanning Spock in a way that, the friend-zoned of us will frequently do.
Maybe.
So I think we might have a triangle going on here. Whatever it is.
I don't know. She gave it their side. I think she keeps her at. I think this episode was establishing the friend zone of Spock and her, and because I think they're pivoting, because they give the exchange here is very much.
Yeah.
I kind of like her, but I would never get involved because I'm not looking for something serious. She has commitment.
Yeah.
I think that's the table we're setting. Not sure. We'll see.
I don't know, because I'm wondering, do we have a chain of friend zones?
I think it's too complicated. They've established
friend-zoning Chapel, and is Chapel friend-zoning Ortegas?
I think it's too complicated to muddy the waters with Spock's relationship right now. They just spent a whole episode reaffirming it and how important
making that
it is.
happen. Yeah,
I think it would be. I think it would be a plot disservice. It would be, but we'll see.
I wish, because I love, that it's Chapel and Ortegas. I feel like they
suspect we're going
well.
that way.
All right. Well, that is the episode. Let us go to our after show and discuss whether there were any wormholes in the plot.
Keith, until our friends, family, and countrymen come up with a better... where is the... Oh, there's it. Come up with a better idea for a theme song here, like the Alan Remy's. I've decided to have a temporary placeholder.
Oh, I can't wait.
And it goes like this. It's time for us to bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home. Get it? Because he says bring it, so we have to say
punch
bring
it
home. You sure he doesn't say bring it?
No, he says punch it. And I love that.
Oh, I committed
did that for like 2 minutes.
I committed so hard to it.
Yeah.
God damn it. Well, I blew it.
Okay, well, Lame is
even
on
better.
tour
Even
in a
better.
city near you still.
Even better.
Yeah.
We have to leave it there now.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's bring it, punch it to wormholes in the plot.
Whew. So, I was going to say the one wormhole that felt like a retcon, it's funny you just brought it up, is that I felt like we were tying off the potential flirty flirts that they gave us in the pilot between Spock and Chapel. I think my feeling is that they've amputated that limb and what do they call it? They cauterized the wound and we're kind of moving forward. So they're giving her other ways. I thought that's what was happening. You're saying you think there's maybe still a bridge, so we'll see.
I think we might have a friend zone triangle going on.
I can't wait to find out. So I won't. I put that in the wormhole category, although it's not a big deal. I also thought that we were going to get a little more action with why we're in dry dock and why we have all these biomes. Like, what are we going to do? Something like they just basically used it for 2 exterior shots, which seemed...
Well, we've seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
This is our home base.
Okay. And I also brought up but to be wormholes, meaning things that don't make sense or are incongruent. I could not clock any. And it might be because I was just enjoying and not paying too much attention. So maybe you had a better shot at clocking actual wormhole.
I don't, honestly. I think this episode is incredibly tight. There's not a lot of plot to it, right? But the mechanics of it all made sense to me. This new species and their radical empathy idea, it clocked to me. It made sense. Like, I don't know. I
mean, I guess we could get into the whole. So it takes like a tantric Vulcan spiritual thing in order for the body swap to happen, but then we can just we can just medically crystal the Freaky Friday back. I mean, I would imagine that there is some wormhole in the Freaky Friday magic, but that's more of we got to let it go.
I mean, the Vulcan magic mind meldy hoo-ha, like that's Trek. I mean, that's
yeah, but then you should probably Vulcan magic get out of it
back.
Yeah,
to have a but it's yeah. If they had like if the procedure of the body swap was a Vulcan ritual, then there would be a Vulcan solution. But it's a Vulcan ritual going haywire. But yeah, I mean the crystals and chocolate is just a little it's silly. But who cares? I don't care.
And you don't got to care about the wormhole. Our job is just to point it out.
Our occupation is pointing out wormholes, whether we care or not. Let us go to the best moment.
I'm gonna let you go first. Let's swap at this. Let's Freaky Friday this because I always get to go first.
With Freaky Friday, gosh, it's hard to say because there's so many good moments to it. I think the scene where they have just body swapped and get interrupted by Pike, that sequence of them like trying to pretend they can not, then and it all sort of falling apart, and then Pike's reaction, that is where I laughed the most. So I liked so much of this episode. It's hard to pick an exact moment, but that's one where I thought it was just really cooking, just comedically.
I think I'll join you. I think we're gonna both heap praise on Chapel in our summation, so I'm not gonna spend the time.
I admitted I got a crush on Chapel, so that's pretty.
But I was kind of harsh on Rebecca Romaine a couple episodes back, and so I want to take this opportunity. I think I'm going to point out my favorite moment, best moment. Maybe for this we should change to favorite moment. Who cares? But I would say my best moment was, I'm going to use my space for the montage, the bingo montage, because I thought it was such a well-paced, well-executed gag that didn't overstay its welcome, actually pushed the two characters forward in exploring having fun and also getting to do some of the things that they didn't do as ensigns and such, which led them to, maybe growing a little bit. And it was funny. I laughed a lot. So Keith and I both shouting out the humor in this episode. The Freaky Friday, everything was working. So let's get right to it then.
Yeah. Super, super fun. I think it's time for some stem bolts, sir.
You get some stem bolts. Are they self-stealing?
Hell yeah, they are self-stealing. Are they going to bring us home?
Punch it, Chewie! Y'all. I mean, I didn't just giggle. I flat out LOL'd hard 3 times. Yeah. I thought literally everything in this episode worked for me. Everything. And it was so awesome that halfway through, we've talked about the growing pains. We've talked about them kind of honing in on their tone. I think they found it here. They can do big budget cinematic. Last week was a movie.
Yeah.
This week was a perfect episode of television. You know what I mean? It had multiple plots that were all threaded together. It paired our little different characters into different teams, and everything was working. Relationships were furthered. Relationships were solidified. Relationships were established. Plot beats were raised, and we had to come together to solve them. I thought that let's take them one by one. The Freaky Friday was really about the idea of empathy and understanding your partner so that you can understand the conflicts you have together. That empathy extends into the next plot line, which was these negotiations and how sometimes we can both have the same destination, but getting there, the impasse in getting there is that both sides just want to be heard and don't want to be led along during the negotiations. And we got to meet a cool new alien and all kinds of stuff. And Robert April was great here, if lacking really any sort of point or agency. Also, there was a subplot with Nurse Chapel and Spock, which was beautiful and sophisticated because she was able to observe in his relationship the conflict that she knows because she is the empathy, because she knows why she doesn't want relationships, right? So empathy is a thread, and it could be very too broad, but it weaves the
whole episode's
it
about
stitches
it.
the whole episode together into like a really fine cloth, a really finely stitched cloth, Keith. It was funny. I thought it made its points. I thought it made its points in a Trekkie way too, because it's about, we're doing a lot of base level Federation stuff here. Which what is the Federation about? Why is it important? Even though we have, in politics, I think their big political thesis here. Things are complicated. There's a lot of voices. Who's in charge? And it is messy. But that empathy can actually help translate the different voices into a common good. All the things, right? So good, so funny, so wonderful. I can't want anything more from it. I just loved it. It's my favorite episode of the series so far. 95 full self-sealing stem bolts.
Yeah. I mean, I think this episode is a delight from the very beginning to the very end. It's a little comedic souffle that has more depth than you think it does.
Mm-hmm.
When you really start to pick it apart, so many times you pick apart an episode and it has less depth than you think. And this has actually a lot more flavors and a lot more sophistication than its the trifle that is its tone. And so it really is, it succeeds in every level on that. But I think it also succeeds because of the drama of last week.
Yeah.
Right? If every episode of the show were this tone, it wouldn't work as well. Right? Because this is especially effective because of the direness of the tone and the drama that we had last week. It's a relief. It's a let-up match that all of this is deepened by the fact that there are real stakes in this world and that there are real trauma and emotions and danger, and that when we can have this break from the dire, it's all the more satisfying, all the more exciting. And I think that is where the back-to-back of Memento Mori into this as the two sides of the same coin really add fun and depth to this whole thing. So
and it's a different way, I think, a different way to be both episodic but also serial in a different way,
Yeah. And I think you were saying last week you were hoping for something a little quirky. Well, damn.
Yeah.
Here we are. It's quirky, it's fun, it's character-based. There's no action whatsoever. After this amazing action sequence of last week, now it's just about feelings.
Well, the prologue, his anxiety dream is a little actiony.
A little bit, but it's a dream. It is really just really well handled. It feels like a you talk about the confidence of an episode all the time. Like this is a really confidently done sequence. Star Trek isn't always funny, or it's not always funny on purpose. And this was funny on purpose. I liked the message of it. You're right, it's very Star Trekky. It's very optimistic. It's very humanistic. It's very emotionally, like the EQ is high here as well as the IQ.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I love this episode. This makes me really excited to keep going with the series. I gave it 94 self-stealing stem bolts. I got nothing to complain about. It was really fun.
It's really great.
It was like Hell yeah. Super, super fun. Really, really enjoyed it. So, there you are. Next week, we'll be talking about the episode that is next week's episode.
You don't say.
Yes,
Well,
it's
damn.
so funny. We're gonna do this in a serialized fashion with Lift Us, where suffering cannot reach. No, sounds a little darker. I don't know. We're
That's
gonna
the whole
find
name
out.
of it?
Yes, the name of the episode is Lift Us, where suffering cannot reach. Don't know. Gonna be fun. Have no idea. This is the really fun part about doing a series I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like every other series we've ever done, I'm like, I've seen it 100 times. I know exactly what's coming. But there it is. If you would like to see our other series, you can watch Keith and Mike watch Deep Space Nine, K&M Geekly. The entire series of The Practice is available in your podcasting feeds in a show called Out of Practice. We do this show, and we do look at my Star Trek toys every week. So much fun nonsense. All of our socials are below us here. And you can find us at patreon.com/KNM and get all of our other nonsense. Definitely the time to fix that, Mike, because...
Sorry, it was bugging me. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, we will see you back here next week. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. Please tell a friend.
Yeah, please.
We're trying to get more folks watching this. Anybody else who would enjoy this, post it on your social medias, whatever. It will be very much appreciated. And
Well, think about it. Let's see. 2 weeks, season 2 premieres. So we'll be 5, 6, 7. So we'll only be 3 weeks back. So I think because they've released weekly, right?
Weekly.
So we
yep.
should catch up.
No, we will never catch up because we're working at the same pace they are.
You're right.
But we won't be that far behind.
No, and you know what? That's been that's our thesis. Never too far behind.
Not too far behind is definitely a victory for us. All right, that's enough of that. We'll see you back here next week. Till then, this has been Strange New Show. Keith and Mike watch Star Trek: Strange New World.
Punch it!
Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.